we're back. Deal with it.
Determined trying to beat this. Who does that?
Three, two, one. Go, go, go!
You get lucky. No, I'm gonna restart that. I'm gonna restart it. Try it one more time.
I'm gonna whip your teeny tiny buns. Three, two, one, go!
Three,
There, Lena?
2, 1, go.
That's not good. Dang. You know, I think I learned my lesson. Down I go. Where that samurai? That's what I'm looking for.
and beyond. We're out of here, fellas. Jump City, what up? This is it. Time to track down Superman once and for all. The man, he canceled the lawsuit and saved Teeny Titans. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Thank you, Abu Ben Yisrael. 34 for comment. Thank you, Lena. Thank all of you who enjoyed the stream. Just remember to live every day in victory. Of course, in the victory music, victory fanfare. Till next time, dudes.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Officials in Gaza say Israel's killed at least 111 Palestinians over the past 24 hours, including 91 people seeking food and aid. Over 800 Palestinians have been injured in the deadliest incident on Wednesday. At least 51 were killed by Israeli forces as they headed toward aid trucks at the Zikim crossing. On Wednesday, Palestinians gathered at El Shifa Hospital to mourn the deaths of family and friends killed on Tuesday while seeking aid.
I'll get right to it. I need a six-pack of soda.
You can ask anyone. For 3 or 4 days, you couldn't find any food. People were either dying of hunger, even in intensive care units, you find them starving with nothing to eat. Or we would die in the places of death, the places of killing and destruction, where we go to get something to eat, but end up bringing back our children to bury them.
On Wednesday, Canada became the latest country to announce plans to recognize a Palestinian state, joining recent calls by France and the UK. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke in Ottawa.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reform, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its government, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
Israel blasted Canada's move, calling it a, quote, reward for Hamas. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, that will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them, unquote. Meanwhile, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has arrived in Israel as ceasefire talks have stalled. In the UK, a high court has ruled the co-founder of the direct action group Palestine Action can challenge the Home Secretary's decision to ban the group as a terrorist organization. Under the ban, membership and direct support of Palestine Action is punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Since it was banned, more than 200 people have been arrested for publicly protesting in support of Palestine Action. That includes an 83-year-old priest and an 81-year-old retired magistrate judge. Meanwhile, The Board of Deputies of British Jews, the largest organization representing Jews in the UK, has called for a massive and sustained flow of aid into Gaza. The organization also condemned Israel's starving of the population of the besieged Strip. It comes as Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced the UK will recognize a Palestinian state unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire. On Capitol Hill, more than half the Democratic caucus voted Wednesday to block $675 million in U.S. arms sales to Israel. Senator Bernie Sanders had introduced the measure, which ended up being defeated in a 70-27 vote. Senator Sanders spoke from the floor before the vote.
Has provided more than $22 billion for Israel's military operations since this war began. $22 billion. One estimate based on Brown University research calculates that the United States has paid for 70% of the Gaza war. In other words, American taxpayer dollars are being used to starve children, bomb schools, kill civilians, and support the cruelty of Netanyahu and his criminal ministers.
The U.S. has sanctioned Alexander de Moraes, the Brazilian Supreme Court Justice, in charge of the criminal case against the right-wing former President Jair Bolsonaro, accused of attempting a coup after losing the 2022 elections. The U.S. also slapped Brazil with 50% tariffs on imports. President Trump signed an executive order announcing the tariffs, specifically citing the justice for abusing, quote, his judicial authority to target political opponents, end quote. President Trump has expressed his admiration for Bolsonaro in the past, calling his trial a witch hunt. Bolsonaro is often referred to as the Trump of the tropics. In other trade news, Trump has announced 25% tariffs on India and new penalties against India for purchasing Russian oil. Trump also announced a new trade deal with South Korea, setting the tariff rate at 15%. We'll have more on Trump's trade deals later in the broadcast. After a historic trial, former Colombian president, close U.S. ally Álvaro Uribe, has been convicted of witness tampering and bribery. He'll be sentenced Friday and faces up to 12 years in prison. The case centered on efforts by Uribe to bribe imprisoned members of paramilitary groups to retract damaging testimony exposing his ties to right-wing paramilitary groups. Uribe ruled Colombia from 2002 to 2010. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio criticized Uribe's conviction. In Texas, Republican state lawmakers have formally introduced a plan to redraw Texas's congressional districts with the goal of picking up 5 more Republican seats. The Texas Republican Party has called the effort a, quote, essential step to preserving GOP control in Congress, unquote. Democratic Congressmember Greg Casar said the GOP gerrymandering will result in the, quote, illegal voter suppression of Black and Latino Texans. Under the plan, Casar's district would be redrawn. Meanwhile, California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is pushing to counter Texas by redrawing California's congressional maps to add more Democratic seats. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has admitted a new Trump plan to create savings accounts for newborns is actually a backdoor way to privatize Social Security. Bessent made the comment Wednesday during a forum organized by the right-wing news outlet Breitbart.
I'm not sure when the distribution level date should be, whether should it be 30 and you can buy a house, should it be 60. But in a way, it is a backdoor for privatizing Social Security.
Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire responded by saying, quote, they're already ripping health care away from millions on Medicaid, and now they've made it clear that your Social Security is next, unquote. In other economic news, the Federal Reserve voted Wednesday to hold interest rates steady, defying pressure from President Trump, who visited the Fed last week to personally lobby for lower rates. In a rare move, 2 Republicans on the Fed dissented, expressing support for lowering rates. During a news conference, Fed Chair Jerome Powell emphasized the importance of the Fed remaining independent. Trump has repeatedly publicly attacked Powell, calling him a total and complete moron and a numbskull, as well as a disaster. A Senate committee has advanced a bill banning stock trading by members of Congress, the president, and the vice president. President Trump slammed the lone Republican who voted for the bill, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, calling him a, quote, second-tier senator, unquote. That's despite a carve-out Hawley added to the bill that would exclude President Trump. The bill would require elected officials to divest from their stocks at the beginning of their next term and would apply to the president and the vice president starting in 2029. The bill faces steep odds in the Republican-controlled Senate. Harvard's prepared to pay up to $500 million to settle 2 federal lawsuits brought by the Trump administration. That's according to the New York Times, which reports the emerging deal would unfreeze billions of dollars of frozen funds for research grants and contracts while preserving Harvard's ability to enroll international students. This comes just days after Columbia University agreed to a $221 million settlement after Trump threatened to cut off federal funding, accusing administrators of failing to protect Jewish students against anti-Semitism during campus protests against Israel's assault on Gaza. Meanwhile, Brown University said Wednesday it's agreed to a $50 million settlement that'll restore federal funding for medical research. Brown agreed to comply with the Trump administration's demands to end the consideration of race in its admissions policies. It'll also enforce a ban on transgender athletes in women's sports. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's freezing $108 million in federal research funding to Duke University after determining its affirmative action policies constitute racial discrimination. In California, immigration officials at San Francisco International Airport have detained a South Korean-born researcher and longtime permanent resident for the past week without explanation and without access to a lawyer. Tae-Hung Will Kim moved to the U.S. when he was just 5 years old. He's a doctoral candidate at Texas A&M University, where he's working on a vaccine to prevent Lyme disease. He was detained July 21st after returning from a 2-week trip to South Korea to attend his brother's wedding. A federal appeals court has rejected the Trump administration's bid to rearrest Columbia University graduate Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil, while the government appeals his release on bail. Wednesday's ruling by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals also affirms a lower court ruling that the Trump administration cannot seek to deport Khalil over his lawful First Amendment-protected speech in support of Palestinian rights. Mahmoud Khalil is a U.S. permanent resident married to a U.S. citizen. New York's Democratic mayoral nominee, Zohran Mamdani, is calling for a nationwide ban on assault rifles, like the one used by the gunman who opened fire Monday on the Manhattan high-rise that houses the NFL's headquarters. After returning from Uganda, where he celebrated his wedding, Mamdani visited the Bronx home of Didarul Islam, the New York police officer who was killed in Monday's mass shooting. Speaking to reporters after meeting with Islam's family, Mamdani distanced himself from a call he made in 2020 to defund the police and accused his opponents of politicizing the shooting.
What I would also say in this moment is that it is beyond me that politicians are looking to use these days to score such cynical political points on the very day that I held the father of Officer Islam in my arms as he could not utter a single word, and as I felt him sobbing at the memory of his 36-year-old son, who will never come home.
Ukrainian officials say Russian drones and missiles struck the capital Kyiv overnight, killing at least 8 people, wounding dozens of others, including a 6-year-old boy. Russia's attack came hours after Ukraine's parliament voted to restore the independence of 2 anti-corruption agencies following widespread protests and pressure from European officials. Thousands demonstrated in the streets after President Zelensky's ruling party tried to push amendments that would have allowed his administration to transfer cases away from the agencies. And Israel's released U.S. labor activist Chris Smalls and the Tunisian activist Hatem Ayini. They had been detained on Saturday with 19 others with the Freedom Flotilla Coalition when Israeli forces raided their Gaza-bound aid ship, the Handala, in international waters. Earlier this week, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition revealed Smalls had been beaten in Israeli detention. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
Welcome to our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org.
got real.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli forces have shot and killed at least 62 people across the Gaza Strip since dawn today, including 19 people seeking food. The latest killings bring Gaza's official death toll since October 2023 to over 60,000, though that number is believed to be a vast undercount. Meanwhile, the world's leading hunger monitoring system warned the worst-case scenario of famine is playing out in the Gaza Strip, with widespread starvation, malnutrition, and disease driving a rise in hunger-related deaths. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification warns the only path to stopping further deaths and catastrophic human suffering is for Israel to allow for the unimpeded, large-scale flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. On Monday, Palestinians holding empty pots and pans gathered at a soup kitchen in Gaza City, hoping for a meal.
We are living in this apartment and I wish we were safe. We have mosquitoes from one side and fleas from the other side. My whole body has fleas. I can't get medicine for myself nor go get treatment. I go from a soup kitchen to another to provide food for my children instead of getting treatment for myself. My small child who is 3 years old has pus in his leg. I can't go get him treatment because I have to provide food for him first.
The governments of Germany and Spain said Monday they'll airdrop humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip in cooperation with Jordan. But officials admitted the amount of aid they can provide pales in comparison to Gaza's starvation crisis. Meanwhile, President Trump has broken from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who declared Sunday, quote, there is no starvation in Gaza. On Monday, Trump said he'd seen images of Palestinians on TV and that, quote, those children look very hungry, unquote. Trump later described scenes of, quote, real starvation. Israel's security cabinet's considering a proposal to annex parts of the Gaza Strip. That's according to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, which reports Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's annexation bid is part of an effort to prevent the resignation of far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who in May declared, quote, we are finally going to conquer the Gaza Strip. We are no longer afraid of the word occupation, unquote. At the United Nations, Saudi Arabia and France have opened a 3-day conference aimed at recognizing Palestinian statehood as part of an effort to end Israel's assault on Gaza. Already 147 of the UN's 193 member states recognize the state of Palestine, though not the United States nor its allies in the G7 group of powerful nations. Ahead of this week's conference, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee mocked France's planned September recognition of Palestine as, quote, the new nation of Frankenstein. U.S. human rights defender Chris Small says he was physically assaulted in Israeli custody after he was abducted by Israeli forces who raided their Gaza-bound humanitarian aid vessel, the Handala, in international waters Saturday. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition says Smalls was choked and kicked in the legs with visible signs of violence on his neck and back, and that this level of force was not used on the other activists. Smalls was the only black crew member of the Handala, which was carrying baby formula, diapers, food, and medicine. Meanwhile, in Greece, protesters on the island of Rhodes scuffled with riot police as they were demonstrating against the war in Gaza, while an Israeli cruise ship was docked. This is one of the protesters.
What do we have here? The killings and the embargo that is happening in Gaza must stop. The people are starving. We demand a reaction from the rest of the world, and that Israel does not operate on the backs of NATO and the West with what it's doing right now. This is murder.
In the occupied West Bank, an Israeli settler shot and killed the Palestinian activist and teacher Oda Mohammed Halalim in a village near Hebron on Monday. He played a key role in the production of the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, which follows Palestinians in the community of Masafer Yatta. as they struggle to stay on their land amidst violent attacks by Israeli settlers. Residents identified Hadelin's killer as Yinon Levy, an Israeli settler who was put on a European Union sanctions list last year for his violent attacks on Palestinians and their property. The Trump administration earlier this year lifted the Biden-era U.S. sanctions on Levy. Video appears to show him brandishing and firing a handgun at Palestinians ahead of Monday's fatal attack. Palestinian journalist and No Other Land co-director Basil Adra mourned Hadelin's killing, writing, quote, "This is how Israel erases us, one life at a time," he said. In Ukraine, Russian strikes have hit a prison in Zaporizhia, killing 17 people and wounding 42. A hospital in the Dnipro region was also hit, killing 3 people, including a pregnant woman. The attacks come as President Trump moved up his deadline for Russia to agree to a ceasefire deal from 50 days to about 10 or 12 days. Here in New York, a gunman wielding a semi-automatic assault rifle walked into a Midtown Manhattan skyscraper Monday evening and opened fire, killing 4 people before fatally turning the gun on himself. Police identified the shooter as 27-year-old Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, who reportedly drove across the U.S. to carry out the attack.
The building security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire.
Tamura was a competitive football player who appeared to be targeting the National Football League's corporate offices. The league has confirmed one employee was critically injured. Tamura had a license to carry a concealed weapon in Nevada. He reportedly carried a suicide note stating grievances with the NFL and saying he suffered from the brain disease CTE, which is linked to head trauma. Meanwhile, in Reno, Nevada, a gunman killed 3 people at a casino resort Monday morning, leaving several others injured in a spray of gunfire before police officers shot him dead. Investigators are still searching for a motive. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 254 mass shootings across the United States so far this year. A federal judge has ruled the Trump administration and Congress cannot block Planned Parenthood from receiving Medicaid payments. In its lawsuit, Planned Parenthood claimed it would have had to close nearly 200 clinics in 24 states without Medicaid funds, which would cut off care to over 1 million patients. Nearly half of Planned Parenthood's patients are on Medicaid. Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator and convicted sex trafficker, Ghislaine Maxwell, is appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn her conviction. Maxwell is claiming she's ineligible to be prosecuted due to a 2007 plea deal struck between Epstein and then Florida prosecutor Alex Acosta, whom Trump later named as labor secretary, who was then had to resign because of the Epstein scandal. Meanwhile, President Trump is looking to force Wall Street Journal owner Rupert Murdoch to give a deposition within the next 2 weeks as part of Trump's defamation lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal. Trump's seeking $10 billion after denying the Journal's report that Trump signed a birthday card to Epstein with a sexually suggestive drawing of a woman. On Monday, Trump gave new details about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, telling reporters in Scotland he ended their friendship because Epstein, quote, stole workers away from me, unquote.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down.
Oklahoma's superintendent of public instruction is facing scrutiny for screening explicit images of nude women in his office television during a meeting of the Oklahoma Board of Education. Ryan Walters previously faced backlash for promoting Bibles endorsed by President Trump on Oklahoma public school students. A third whistleblower has stepped forward with evidence that federal judicial nominee Emil Bovee lied to senators during his confirmation hearing last month. Staff for Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley met Monday with lawyers for the whistleblower. This follows 2 prior whistleblower complaints alleging that while serving as a senior Justice Department official, Bovee ordered subordinates to ignore judicial orders that undermine Trump's agenda. Despite those complaints, North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis said Monday his yes vote remains unchanged, likely giving Bovee enough support for his confirmation. Bovee is Donald Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney, nominated to a lifetime appointment on the 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. A panel of federal judges in Albany, New York, has declined to appoint President Trump's interim U.S. attorney for the Northern District of New York to a permanent position. Monday's announcement means the 120-day interim appointment of John Sarcone III will expire unless Trump nominates him again. During his brief tenure, Sarcone retaliated against the Albany Times-Union for reporting that he listed a boarded-up residence as his home address and accused an undocumented immigrant of trying to kill him, a claim refuted by surveillance video. Meanwhile, federal courts in New Jersey have halted criminal trials and grand jury proceedings amidst questions about Trump's appointment of his former personal attorney, Alina Habba, to serve as acting U.S. attorney. Habba had been serving as interim U.S. attorney until her appointment was due to expire last week when a panel of district judges selected veteran New Jersey prosecutor Desiree Grace to replace her. But Trump's Justice Department quickly fired Grace and named Habba as her replacement, setting off confusion about whether she's disqualified from holding the job. Trump has formally nominated only a quarter of the U.S. attorneys who serve in 85 federal districts. And the director, Christopher Nolan, is facing criticism for shooting his upcoming film, The Odyssey, in the Western Sahara city of Dakhla, which remains under occupation by Morocco. Local activists and the organizers of FI Sahara, the Western Saharan International Film Festival, warn the production normalizes Morocco's repression of the indigenous Sahrawi people who face torture and forced disappearances after holding nonviolent protests. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials in Gaza say at least 14 Palestinians have starved to death over the past day, bringing the total to at least 147, including 88 children. Facing growing international pressure, Israel's allowed some additional aid into Gaza, including by airdrops, but the UN says it's still just a drop in the ocean of what's needed. Israel also said it will pause attacks for periods of the day in parts of Gaza, but the death toll keeps climbing. Earlier today, Israeli forces opened fire at 2 food sites. On Sunday, Israeli forces killed 9 Palestinians and injured 54 who gathered along an aid convoy route in central Gaza. Earlier today, 2 leading Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights, issued reports accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Yuli Novak, the director of B'Tselem, said, quote, "What we see is a clear, intentional attack on civilians in order to destroy a group. I think every human being has to ask himself, what do you do in the face of genocide, unquote. On Sunday, Hamas chief Khalil al-Hayat accused Israel of sabotaging ceasefire negotiations.
لا معنى لاستمرار المفاوضات تحت الحصار.
There is no point on continuing negotiations under blockade, extermination, and starvation of our children, women, and people in the Gaza Strip. The immediate, dignified entry of food and medications to our people is the real and serious expression of the viability of continuing negotiations.
This comes as officials in Gaza say more than 40,000 infants under 1 year old are at risk of a slow death due to a catastrophic shortage of baby formula. On Friday, scores of Palestinians scrambled for food at a makeshift soup kitchen in Gaza City.
I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. When she saw the empty pot, she started to slap her face. There's no food, no water. I gave her a sip of water to make her stop. Then our neighbor gave her half a loaf of bread. He told her, take this, eat. We are living with no food or drink, no food, no bread, not even water. We're craving even the water.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denies there's starvation in Gaza.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza.
For the second time in less than 2 months, Israeli forces have raided a civilian aid ship bound for Gaza in international waters. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition was attempting to break the Israeli siege by sailing the Hambala ship to Gaza with baby formula, diapers, food, and medicine on board. On Saturday night, Israeli forces seized the aid and detained the ship's crew of 21 civilians, including parliamentarians, human rights lawyers, and journalists. Just before the raid, one of the flotilla organizers, Huwaida Arab, spoke by phone with the Israeli forces from the ship.
Vessel carries food and baby formula for children that your government is deliberately starving. Your blockade is deliberately starving children to death. You have no authority to enforce an illegal blockade. This is a war crime.
We'll speak with the Palestinian-American human rights lawyer, Huwaida Arab, later in the broadcast. The Pentagon says it killed a senior Islamic State leader and 2 other members of ISIS in Aleppo, Syria, in a raid Friday. The Pentagon says the men posed a threat to U.S. forces and the new Syrian government. This comes weeks after the U.S. lifted most economic sanctions on Syria. On Sunday, the head of Syria's Electoral Commission announced the country is set to hold its first parliamentary election under the new government in September. The United States and European Union have announced a deal to avert a transatlantic trade war. Under the deal, the U.S. would impose a 15% tariff on most European imports, a large increase over the current rate, but far smaller than what Trump had threatened. The EU also agreed to purchase more than $750 billion of energy products from the U.S. and invest an additional $600 billion in the U.S. Trump's announced deal in Scotland, where he met with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the 2 largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. It's 15% tariffs across the board, all inclusive.
President Trump is meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer today in Scotland. On Saturday, anti-Trump protests were held in the Scottish cities of Edinburgh and Aberdeen, while Trump played golf at his luxury resort, Trump Turnberry. In Edinburgh, protesters called on European leaders to stand up against Trump.
We want them to stand up for the people in Palestine. We want them to stand up for the people in Ukraine. We want them to stand up against Trump's bullying of tariffs all around the world.
federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit by the Trump administration against the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois over its sanctuary policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration agencies. U.S. District Judge Lindsey Jenkins said the sanctuary policies are protected by the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker praised the ruling, saying it'll ensure state law enforcement is, quote, not carrying out the Trump administration's unlawful policies or troubling tactics, unquote. In an attempt to quell the MAGA-based uproar over the Trump administration's refusal to release the files of the dead serial sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, President Trump's former private lawyer, held the second day of meetings on Friday with Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein. Blanche met with Maxwell for 9 hours at the federal courthouse in Tallahassee, Florida. On Friday, Trump was questioned if he's considered pardoning Maxwell.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she's
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something.
recommended.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
We'll speak with investigative journalist Vicki Ward about Ghislaine Maxwell and the serial sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein later in the broadcast. In international news, Malaysia's president says Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a, quote, immediate and unconditional ceasefire set to begin tonight. 33 people have been killed, thousands displaced since fighting erupted last week. The conflict between the two countries dates back to over a century ago during France's occupation of the region. Doctors Without Borders says 652 children have died of malnutrition in the Nigerian state of Katsina during the first half of this year. The charity said the deaths were due to funding cuts from international donors, particularly from the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. In eastern Congo, Islamic State-backed rebels killed 38 people and injured 15 at a Catholic church on Sunday. Officials told Reuters the rebels wielded guns and machetes and attacked worshippers who were taking part in night mass. Several others are still missing. Ukraine and Russia continued to trade drone attacks. On Saturday, Ukraine said 200 Russian drones and 30 missiles targeted Dnipro, killing 3 people. In Russia, 2 people died in a Ukrainian drone strike. Meanwhile, Reuters has revealed new details about the role Elon Musk has personally played in the war in Ukraine. In 2022, when Ukraine pushed to regain some of its territory back from Russia, Reuters reports Musk ordered the shutdown of Ukraine's access to his Starlink satellite service. The Ukrainian offensive stalled as its drones monitoring Russian forces went dark. A source told Reuters the decision allowed Musk to take, quote, the outcome of a war into his own hands, unquote. The New York Times reveals the Trump administration's trying to keep secret how much it'll cost to renovate the $400 million jumbo luxury jet recently gifted to the Trump administration from the royal family of Qatar. The Times noted $934 million has been mysteriously transferred from a project to modernize the U.S. nuclear arsenal. While federal funds will pay for the renovations, the plane will be transferred to Trump and his presidential library after he leaves office. The congressional-funded U.S. Institute of Peace has a new head, State Department official Darren Beatty. During Trump's first term, Beatty served as a White House speechwriter, but was fired for speaking at a gathering of prominent white nationalists. Last year, he posted a message on X, writing, quote, competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work, unquote. After coming under bipartisan pressure, the Trump administration's agreed to release more than $5 billion in frozen education funding for public schools. The money had been previously approved by Congress for English language programs, student enrichment, and adult literacy, and other programs. Here in New York on Saturday, disability activists took over the lobby of the Trump Tower to protest against the Trump administration's cuts to Medicaid. The New York Daily News reports 11 people were arrested at Trump Tower. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people protested in 225 towns and cities as part of the Families First National Day of Action. It comes weeks after President Trump signed a bill that could result in 17 million Americans losing their health insurance. The protests were timed to coincide with the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act and the 60th anniversary of Medicaid, which is this Wednesday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The official death toll in Gaza has topped 58,000. As health officials say, over 200 Palestinians were killed over the past 3 days, including at least 28 so far today. On Sunday, an Israeli missile strike killed at least 10 Palestinians, including 6 children, at a water distribution point in the Serat refugee camp. 17 others were wounded in the blast. Israel also attacked a market in Gaza City on Sunday, killing at least 17 people. On Saturday, health officials in Gaza reported at least 38 Palestinian aid seekers were killed. Hassan Omran is an ambulance paramedic in Khan Yunis.
Well, at least now I have a fancy new assistant.
Today, more than 150 injuries and more than 20 martyrs around the 8 distribution centers. Most of the gunshot injuries we see are on the head or the torso. The Israeli occupation purposely kills and annihilates people. The occupation uses this policy to carry out mass killings by calling on people to get their daily food. Then when these people get there, they get killed in cold blood.
That I like. So
former Israeli Prime Ministers Ehud Olmert and Israeli leader Yair Lapid have denounced a proposal by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to forcibly move Palestinians in Gaza into a so-called humanitarian city to be built on the ruins of Rafah. Olmert and Lapid likened the proposal to forming a concentration camp. Olmert said the plan would also amount to ethnic cleansing. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers fatally beat a 20-year-old Palestinian American from Tampa, Florida. Sefola Musalef was killed on Friday while visiting family in the village of Al-Masra's Asharkia. He is reportedly the 7th American killed in the West Bank since October 2023. A second